It was a colorful night in the village hidden in the leaves. Party lamps were strung about everywhere in the streets with food and game stalls set up and open for business. The villagers were all gathered in party kimonos, celebrating the anniversary of the Fourth Hokage battle and selfless sacrifice against the dreaded Kyuubi no Kitsune. It truly seemed to be a splendid happy evening for everyone. Despite the joyous occasion, there were a few in the village that weren't partaking in the festivities. One was handling a serious dilemma, another was trying to sort out what was happening to their teammate. The third was stewing in jealousy, anger, and their goals for vengeance, while the fourth was sitting on top of the Hokage monument, alone, looking down in pain and rage at the festival occurring below them. Hokage's office Tsunade looked down from her office's window at the villagers partying. She looked absolutely stunning in her green kimono. Any man who would look upon her would instantly ask her to be her date for the festival. A few have tried already, but Tsunade rejected them all. Though she did it politely where in her youth she would have punched them straight into another village, especially with the perverted looks they had in their eyes. Despite how beautiful she looked, she wasn't eager to partake in the festival. Even though as the Hokage it was her duty to attend and give a speech about the heroics of the Fourth Hokage, she seriously didn't have the stomach for it. Not tonight. For one thing, she didn't really see the event as something that should be a joyous occasion. The village lost a good man who killed himself to save them all, and he had to sacrifice the happiness of a child to do it. Something like that should not be celebrated. No, this night should be a time for remembrance and honoring the two individuals that gave everything to save the leaf, one of which didn't even have a choice in the matter, not as one to be an excuse to get drunk and stuff up on delicious food and cuisines. Another thing was that she hated how this event was used as an excuse by some to make the child's life even more miserable, to punish him for something that was nowhere near his fault, and to treat him even more like a monster when he clearly wasn't. She was so tempted to cancel this event, but she knew how much it meant to the villagers, and as Hokage she couldn't deprive them of what is one of the Leaf Village's most important holidays of the year. That and there was no way the council would allow her to do that. Damn bastards! However, there was one reason above all the others that really took the joy out of her that night. Something terrible had happened, something truly awful. She knew without a doubt that it was her fault. Once the news would spread and reach the ears of the boy, whom she had to come to view as like a surrogate brother or son, she knows that he will be in so much pain because of her. The only thing Tsunade could do was try to stave off what had just happened from becoming public knowledge for just a little while longer. She didn't want the young boy to find out on tonight of all nights. This night already causes the poor boy enough torture. She would be damned if she let it cause him any more misery. When the time comes to announce the news, she will make sure the boy would be the first to know. She won't allow him to find out through the gossiping of the villagers or the whispers of his fellow shinobi. She would make it that he would find out first from her personally. He had the right to be the first to know. Tsunade's door slowly creaked open to reveal Kakashi Hadake. "Lady Tsunade, the villagers are waiting for you." Tsunade turned to see the copycat ninja in his light blue kimono. No doubt he was Shizune's date for the festival since the shade of blue of his kimono was Shizune's favorite color. Tsunade sighed. She really didn't want to go out there. "Come on, Tsunadeheim, you're not that ashamed to be seen out in public with me, are you?" Tsunade looked to see Jiraiya standing behind Kakashi in a darker blue kimono. He was her date for the festival since she would rather go out with a pervert that she knows and has experience with than some stranger. While Jiraiya may have finally scored the date of the woman he's loved for years, he wasn't wearing any genuine smiles tonight. He couldn't, neither could Kakashi either. Nothing would plaster their faces except fake grins and laughter for the rest of the evening. They all know what has happened, and they were all worried about how the boy would handle the news. "Humph, I would rather be seen out with one of your toads than with you, Jiraiya." It was a nasty comment, and she knew it was in poor taste, but she couldn't help it. She was covering up her nervousness and her sense of guilt. Luckily, being her teammate for many years has allowed Jiraiya to pick up on that, so he wasn't really hurt by the remark. Tsunade started to walk to her date, but stopped halfway in the room. "Remember, both of you, I don't want anyone to know of what happened. Not until we tell Naruto first." They both nodded. Even though keeping secrets wasn't a problem for two distinguished veteran shinobi such as themselves, they knew how much Tsunade needed to reiterate how important it was to keep a lid on this. The boy can't find out now, not on what is possibly the worst night of the year for him. Kakashi looked down at the ground, his lone eye showing much concern and worry. "I just hope he'll be prepared for what's coming, 'cause I don't think I'm going to be of much help to him if he's not. He's still been giving me the cold shoulder, and I can't figure out why. Jirya and Tsunade both understood. When they both told Kakashi what had happened, they had also told him of the boy's new opinion of him, and inquired why he had developed these negative views towards him. Kakashi didn't have the slightest idea, but he was shocked that one of his own students would think that he didn't believe or have faith in him. He tried to think of anything he might have done to warrant such aggressiveness from the kid, but he couldn't come up with anything. Not that he could fully concentrate on the matter since this issue was taking precedence. Jirya closed his eyes. When the time comes to tell him, he's going to need all of us there to support him. This may possibly be the worst pain he'll ever go through in these early years of his life. Tsunade winced at that. She didn't want to cause the boy more pain than he was already going through, but she knew it was only a matter of time before he would find out. Better that he would be the first to find out from them than from anyone else in the village. It's all my fault. I knew there was something fishy about it, but I still granted it. Jirya and Kakashi looked at the slug princess. You can't blame yourself, Tsunade. You had no way of knowing of what would happen. It's the same for any of them you send away. The village was still being rebuilt, and we needed the income to support the reconstruction and repairs. Tsunade lowered her head, and her hands curled into fists of frustration and guilt. I am responsible for what happened, Jirya. Me and me alone, I chose to go through with it. I chose to ignore my instincts telling me that something was off about it, and look what happened. I made a mistake, and the poor boy is going to be the one who pays for it. Jirya walked into the room and placed a hand on her shoulder to comfort her. Tsunade, it's not your fault. There was nothing you could have done. Instead of blaming yourself, you should be focusing on how you're going to tell him, because if I know him and I do, he's going to take it hard. Very hard. Tsunade looked up at her old teammate. She knew he was right. She had to focus on how she was going to break the news to the poor boy. She figured the best way would be to have him come to her office and tell him there in private with Kakashi and Jirya. The kid was going to need them. He will need them. Still, she had a very difficult time trying to muster up the courage to be ready to tell him. Sure, she's had years of experience of breaking bad news to people when it came to medical or other reasons, but this was different. This involved someone who was precious to her, someone who brought her back from the depths of her very own depression and self-exile. She doesn't know if she could handle the look on his face when she tells him. Maybe we can keep it an S-class secret until he's old enough. Everyone looked to see Shizune in a black kimono, holding Taunton standing behind Kakashi. It was a possible solution that may work. However, it would more than likely only work in the short run, and not in the long. That, and to keep a secret like that from him for such a long time, would likely cause even more damage than telling him in the present. No, he needs to know about this as soon as possible. It's only a matter of time before the news starts to spread, and I don't want him to find out from some idiot who couldn't keep their mouth shut. Besides, we're already keeping one secret from him that he has more than a right to know, and we still can't tell him. We can't keep this one with it, at least not for too long. Everyone nodded in agreement. It was true. If he were to learn of both secrets at once, it could devastate him. No, it could destroy him. They proceeded down into the village with their fake smiles greeting the villagers. Deep down, though, they all knew that soon enough, Naruto Uzumaki's life was going to go through hell. Leaf Kyuubi Festival, everyone around her was enjoying the night, playing some of the various games at the stands and helping themselves to the food and sake stalls. They were all having so much fun, and with their dates too. Sakura Haruno, however, wasn't enjoying the evening. No, she chose to spend it sitting at a small tea shop alone in her pink kimono. In front of her sat her tea, which she barely touched even after she received it almost 40 minutes ago. The tasty hot brew was probably stone cold by now, especially considering that it's always been very cold during October in the Leaf Village. The pink-haired Kunoichi has always spent the festival alone, but this time it was different. All the previous festivals she chose to spend alone because she was saving herself for when she would be Sasuke's date. Each time it was boring, and a bit irritating having to watch others have a fun time with their dates, but she kept telling herself that it would be worth it when Sasuke would accept her as his date, and she could finally have the festival experience she's always wanted and dreamed of having. This year, like the others, wasn't the case. Sasuke couldn't come to the festival because he was still recuperating from their last mission. She tried to salvage her hopes of spending the evening with him by offering to stay with him during the festival, but he declined and told her to go without him. It really stung, but she understood. After all, he's always seen her as annoying despite how hard she tries to show him that she's worthy of his attention and company. But Sasuke and his rejection wasn't what was on her mind during the festival. No, it was her other teammate. The one who's been chasing after her for a date for years now, and when she finally decided to go out with him, he turned her down. To this moment, she still had a hard time swallowing the fact that Naruto Uzumaki refused to be her date for the festival. I can't believe Naruto rejected me. Sakura has tried to wrap her head around it many times, but she still couldn't figure out the puzzle that was Naruto. He's always pestered her for dates. Hell, a few of the times he even got on his hands and knees and begged her for them. She never admitted it, but she thought it was kind of cute when he did that. Was this his way of getting back at her for all those rejections? Did she do something wrong? Did he not like her anymore? That last question really put the fear into Sakura. For some reason, the thought of Naruto not liking her anymore hurt more than being rejected by Sasuke. It couldn't be true. No, Naruto isn't like that. He wouldn't just stop liking me just like that. Would he? Sakura began to reason with herself. Naruto has never given up on anything, so he couldn't. No, he wouldn't give up on liking her. No, it must be this strange behavior of his. That had to be the reason. He's been acting differently with everyone, not just her. But what's causing this change inside him? What's going on with you, Naruto? Why won't you let me help you? Hey, forehead. Sakura was snapped out of her deep thinking by her friend and rival Ino Yamanaka. Ino stood in front of her with her hands on her hips, sporting a purple kimono with a slightly annoyed expression on her face. Finally, I've been trying to get your attention for 10 minutes now. What's going on in that big billboard brow head of yours? Sakura growled at that comment. She always hated being reminded of her large forehead and by Ino of all people. Wouldn't you like to know? Ino pig, Ino growled at the cherry blossom Kunoichi, and both girls immediately got into each other's face. Their eyes looking like white saucers while their teeth were grinding. A few of the villagers nearby started to get nervous of the killer intent radiating from the two Kunoichi girls. After what seemed like hours, the girls stepped away from each other, took a deep breath, and sat down at Sakura's table. Sheesh, this is the thanks I get for checking up on you to see why you looked so upset. Talk about appreciation. Sakura took another deep breath. She really wasn't in the mood for Ino's complaints or insults tonight. She just had to fool her into thinking everything was fine so she could leave her in peace. Well, sorry for wasting your time, Ino, but I'm not upset. I just wanted to have a nice quiet evening, okay? Sakura put on a big grin to let her know that nothing was wrong. However, Sakura looked at Ino and could tell that she wasn't going to budge. No, when that girl had her mind set on something, she could be stubborn as hell. You can't fool me, forehead. I know when you're upset, so spit it out. Sakura groaned and rubbed her hands over her face. It was obvious at this point that Ino wasn't going to buy it. If she couldn't fool her the first time, then there was no point in prolonging the inevitable. Ino leaned her chin onto her hands while her fingers were clasped together. Let me guess, Sasuke-kun rejected you even when you offered to stay with him at the hospital. Sakura's eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets. How did Ino know about that? Was she spying on them at the hospital? Sakura started to grind her teeth again, thinking that had to be the explanation. That pig is gonna get it now. Shanaro. Ino saw the angry look on Sakura's face and rolled her eyes. No, forehead, I wasn't spying on you and Sasuke-kun. I knew he rejected you spending the evening with him because he did the same thing to me. Man, you can be so predictable in how you think, Sakura. Sakura calmed down a little but was still ticked off. She folded her arms on the table, sticking her chin up to the side. Humph, well, for your information, Ino, I wasn't rejected by Sasuke-kun. He was just tired and wanted to rest this evening without anyone disturbing him. Sakura was lying, of course. However, she wasn't about to let Ino think that she didn't have some leeway with her Sasuke-kun after all. Ino, of course, didn't look like she was buying it as usual. Whatever you say, forehead. So, where's your date? Sakura was caught off guard with Ino's inquiry. She didn't want Ino to know that she was spending the festival alone again, even after she tried to get another date besides Sasuke. But she knew that there was just no lying to her at this point. I couldn't get one this year, Ino. Ino stared at Sakura for a few seconds before bursting out laughing. She held her sides with how hard she was cracking up. Sakura's face became crimson as she started to feel embarrassed. Finally, having enough, she clenched her fists and growled. What's so funny, pig? Ino finally started to calm down and wiped the tears from her eyes, being careful not to ruin her makeup. I'm sorry, but that is just hilarious, Sakura. I mean, you being sad about Sasuke-kun rejecting you is one thing, but also being depressed that you couldn't get a date. I mean, Sakura, you have to admit it's pretty funny, especially when the answer to your date troubles has been right in front of you the whole time? Sakura was really starting to get pissed. What the hell did she mean it's been right in front of her? She hated when Ino makes no sense, almost as much as when she's being annoying. What the hell are you talking about, pig? Ino rolled her eyes and chuckled more before she gave her answer. Naruto Uzumaki. Sakura's eyes widened. All the anger and frustration she felt just mere moments ago melted away, instantly replaced by depression and worry for the blonde idiot. Ino didn't notice the change of expression as she had her eyes closed and was still droning on. I mean, all you had to do was ask him to come to the festival with you and your date problem would have been solved. He's been crazy about getting a date with you since the academy. It would have been easy. Sakura looked down at the table, her eyes filling with sadness, thinking of what happened on that rooftop a few days ago. I did ask Naruto, Ino. He turned me down. Ino's own eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets and she screamed at the top of her lungs. What? Bang! Sakura winced as Ino fell out of her chair and hit the ground hard. Before she could ask if she was all right, Ino was already back on her feet and slammed her hands down on the table, her eyes still full of shock. Naruto Uzumaki actually rejected a date with you? Ino's shouting started to attract the attention of the crowd. Some of them minded their own business, but Sakura caught glimpses of some of the villagers scowling or narrowing their eyes. It wasn't towards Ino, though despite the ruckus she was making. Sakura knew it was the mention of her teammate. She couldn't help but wonder why they act so angry and annoyed at just the mere mention of his name. She could understand the annoyed part because of the pranks he used to pull, but still. Before Sakura could think further on the subject, she felt her shoulders being grabbed by Ino, who started to shake her. Sakura Haruno, you are going to tell me every single detail of what happened. Sakura knew that there was no escape now. Once Ino gets a taste of some gossip, she never quits until she hears the whole story. So Sakura decided to tell her everything. Who knows? Maybe Ino would be able to help her figure out what is wrong with Naruto. I was leaving the hospital after Sasuke turned me down when I saw Naruto on the rooftops. At first, I thought he was being attacked. There were a bunch of objects flying around him like he was trapped in a tornado. That wasn't it, though, Ino. Sakura took a deep breath. He was using that power again, the one we saw in the Forest of Death. Ino was stunned. She knew exactly what Sakura was referring to. She slowly moved and sat in the chair next to her. Looking down at the table as she remembered everything she saw in the fight with the Sound Genins. What happened? Is he all right? Sakura looked down at the table herself. No, he's not all right. When I approached him, he didn't even know I was there until I started shaking him. He looked like he was in some kind of trance and he was crying Ino. Just like he did in Forest, only ... It felt worse this time. The pain he was feeling felt worse. Ino cocked a brow at Sakura a little, confused by what she was saying. It felt worse. How? Sakura realized her confusion with what she said. I can't explain it. It just felt worse to me. Anyway, I finally managed to snap him out of it. I asked him what was wrong. He wouldn't tell me. He told me that I should just focus on visiting Sasuke and that I should take him or Lee to the festival. He didn't even try to get a date out of me. Sakura looked at Ino, her emerald eyes showing more worry and concern than before. As she continued, her voice started to break a little. I'm worried about him, Ino. He's changing. Even before the Chunin exams, Naruto's been acting differently. He started calling me Sakura-san when he has never called me anything before but Sakura-chan. When we fought those Sound Genins, I was so scared of what was happening to him in that fight that I just couldn't take it. Even after that fight, I could still tell that something was wrong with him. He barely speaks a word to me. He's fighting Sasuke more often. He won't tell our sensei anything, and one time he even screamed at our sensei when he stopped a fight he and Sasuke were having. I tried my best to get them to get along and to get him to open up to me, but nothing's working. But that's not the worst of it. No, what's worse is how Naruto and the villagers interact. Every time we get back from a mission, they would give Naruto these awful looks and glares like they're eager to attack him, and Naruto would just glare right back at them with such hate and anger in his eyes, and also pain. Sakura took a large gulp of her cold tea before continuing. I couldn't take it anymore, Ino. I wanted the old Naruto back, the one that would always wear that stupid grin on his face who's constantly yelling that he'll be Hokage. I wanted that Naruto back, Ino. I wanted to help him with whatever problems he was having. That's why I asked if he would be my date. I thought if he went on a date with me, everything would be fine. That he would cheer up, I would get the old Naruto back, and then everything would go back to normal. Instead, He actually rejected me. That's when I realized that something was seriously wrong with Naruto. I was determined at that point to find out what it was, and I was going to pin him down to do it. He pushed me away, Ino. He used that power to push me away from him. Ino was shocked as Sakura finished her story. For one thing, Sakura didn't refer to Sasuke with the kun suffix, which was really odd. Second, she knew Naruto for a long time, even a little before the academy. She's always thought of him as an obnoxious, stuck-up, loud-mouthed moron. This didn't sound like the boy she knew, that any of the Rookie 9 knew. Then again, Naruto was not himself in the Forest of Death. Those yellow eyes he had really gave Ino the creeps. After the forest, she thought Naruto had gone back to normal. He seemed normal when he fought Kiba, and Neji, albeit he looked a little pissed when he did. Then again, Ino didn't see much of him or Sakura and their team after the invasion. She was busy with her own team taking missions to help rebuild the village. Did Naruto really change that much? I don't know what to do, Ino. I can't figure out why he's acting like this, or why he wouldn't come with me to the festival. Ino started to think of all the possible reasons. It could be that maybe Naruto is sick of his teammates. It would explain his fights with Sasuke and his attitude towards his sensei. Also, Ino would never tell her this, but she always thought Sakura could be a tad harsh when it came to treating Naruto, and that says a lot coming from her. Still, she thought Naruto had thicker skin than that. It didn't make sense. None of it. Did he tell you why he didn't want to be your date? Sakura was about to say no when she remembered what Naruto said to her. Flashback few days ago, I'm not going to the festival, Sakura-san. I hate the damn thing. I refuse to go to a festival that celebrates the man who ruined and damned my life and existence. End flashback. Sakura face palmed herself. How could she have been so stupid? She was so focused on Naruto rejecting her that she forgot that Naruto told her his reasons for not wanting to go to the festival. He did. I can't believe I forgot. He said he hated the festival and he didn't want to come because he blames the fourth Hokage for making his life miserable. Ine looked at Sakura like she just sprouted a new head. That's crazy. Why would Naruto hate the festival? It's the best festival we have all year. None of our other holidays or other festivals come even close. Also, why would Naruto blame the fourth Hokage for anything? What did he ever do to him? I see. Can TT tell you? Sakura and Ino looked up to see Hinata Hyuga wearing a lavender kimono, fidgeting around with her thumbs, looking nervous and shy as usual. They were actually surprised to see her here. Hinata, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at the Hyuga compound resting? Sakura wasn't asking out of annoyance. Hinata took a very severe beating from her cousin Neji during the preliminaries. So much so that when Sakura found out Naruto was set to fight Neji in the finals, she nearly had a heart attack for her teammate, having to fight that cold-hearted bastard. Nevertheless, she cheered and rooted for Naruto to kick the crap out of the arrogant Hyuga. She was still thankful and amazed that he won. The heir to the main family branch picked up the seat that Ino was sitting in earlier and propped it back up before sitting in it. I managed to convince my father that I was well enough TT to attend, though he only allowed it if I took a couple of G-guards with me. She motioned with her head to a couple of Hyuga guards standing watch nearby them. And I thought my dad was strict. Sakura nodded in agreement with Ino before she inquired to the Hyuga girl on what she said earlier. Hinata, do you know why Naruto hates the festival and the fourth Hokage? Hinata looked up at Sakura and started to push her fingers nervously. I don't know why Naruto-kun hates him. BB, but I think I know W. Why he hates the FF festival. Hinata looked up and sweat dropped as both Ino and Sakura were leaning over the small table towards her. Both were eager to hear why he would hate such a wonderful event. The Hyuga heiress started to get more nervous but steeled her resolve. They had to know why Naruto hated this festival. They had to understand his reasons for not coming. It all happened 4 years ago. I was at tending the festival with an aide of mine. We were having a great time until we heard a CC commotion nearby. We headed over and saw that Naruto-kun was arguing with a M-man who was an owner of a FF fish stall. Naruto-kun said that he caught the F-fish fair and square and that he deserved to keep it as a pet. The man didn't believe him and said that he was nothing more than a lying cheating brat. Naruto-kun got really mad and said that the man W was the one lying BBB, because his fish game stall was nothing but a SS scam. He said that all the N-nets broke B before they even touched the fishes, and W was the same W when other people tried to catch them. As they listened to Hinata's tale, both Ino and Sakura recalled playing at that stall about 5 years ago. They were both determined to prove they were better than the other and made a competition out of it, though not a friendly one. Neither of them caught any fish. In fact, neither of them could even get close to a fish, cause the nets constantly broke when they went into the water. They both accused the man of being a cheat, which caught the attention of the authorities, and the man got into trouble. The man G got really angry, and TT tossed his whole F-fish tank right at Naruto-kun. He was completely de-drenched. Poor Naruto-kun was shivering from the sea-cold water and air. Then the M-man said, "There's your fish." Naruto-kun actually got on H, his hands and knees to L look for the fish he CC caught. When he found it, a W-woman stepped out over the sea crowd and stomped on it. She G-grinded it into the ground right in front of Naruto-kun. Then she said that, "Little D-demons don't deserve P-prizes." Naruto-kun called her a M-mean-D drunk, and he was right. That W-woman and the whole crowd W with her were drunk. Could smell it. She got angry and K-kicked Naruto-kun in the F-face. After that, Naruto-kun started to run, and the fish stall owner, the W-woman, and the whole crowd all chased him. IG got so W worried that I L left my aide and FF followed them. I was H horrified with what I saw. They were all B-beating and K-kicking Naruto-kun while he W was on the ground. He was J, just a sea child, and yet they B-beat him M, mercilessly. IT thought they W were going to KKK kill him and ran for H help. L luckily Lord Third and Uruka-sensei were N nearby, and IT told them that Naruto-kun was in TR trouble. They B broke up the sea crowd and T took Naruto-kun to the hospital. P poor Naruto-kun H had serious CC cuts and B bruises everywhere B. But he was going to be all right. But ever since that night I never saw Naruto-kun at the F festival again. Sakura and Ino both had their hands over their mouths. Their eyes were barely holding back tears. They couldn't believe Hinata's story. They couldn't believe the villagers did that to Naruto. How could they? Sakura was disgusted and horrified that her own people would do that to a fellow member of her team and the village, who was a child at the time no less. It also didn't make any logical or ethical sense. The man who ran that fish stall was already proven to be a liar and a scammer. Why would the villagers take his word over Naruto's? Even if Naruto was lying, how does lying about cheating in a simple game like that warrant a public beating as punishment? And calling him a demon was also out of line. Naruto isn't a demon. He can be an annoying pain in the ass, but he is no demon. None of it made any sense at all. If that happened to me, I would hate the festival too. Yeah, me too, Sakura agreed with Ino. In fact, she was starting to not feel comfortable coming to the festival anymore. Not after something like that happened to her teammate during a previous one. Were any of those people arrested? Ino asked a good question. Sakura also wanted to know if Lord Third punished those people for doing something so heinous as beating a child. A child that was her teammate. The look on Hinata's face suggested that they weren't going to like the answer she was about to say. And no, Hije, just G gave them all a wall warning that if they harmed Naruto-kun again then he would punish them harshly. What? Slam. Hinata became startled from Sakura's outburst and her slamming her hands down on the table, causing her cold tea to fall off with the cup breaking on the ground. Hinata looked at Sakura and saw that she was furious. She's never seen the cherry blossom Kunoichi so angry before. Ino placed a hand on Sakura's shoulder to calm her down. After a few seconds she did and sat back down in her chair. What the hell was the third Hokage thinking? Ino and Hinata were shocked that Sakura said that. They've never heard Sakura talk like that about the old Hokage before. She was always respectful of him, even when she was disappointed, and annoyed that he chose Naruto to be placed on her team on the day when teams were announced. Despite the disrespect, they both fully agreed with her. It was insane not to punish the villagers for committing such a horrid crime upon a child. Such an act is unforgivable and deserves severe punishment. Sakura looked at the Hokage monument. I think I'm beginning to understand why Naruto pulled all those pranks on the Hokage's faces. I'm starting to wish I joined him. Once again, Ino and Hinata were surprised by Sakura. She always complained, lectured, and smacked Naruto around for pulling them. It looked as if her opinion of the boy was greatly changing. Ino looked up at the monument. Yes, it certainly made sense why Naruto pulled all those pranks now. Ino thought Naruto did it because he was an undisciplined brat. Now, she realizes he might have done them because of the cruelty of the villagers. If she knew they did that to him beforehand, she would have helped Naruto with his pranks too. I still can't believe they did that to Naruto-kun, especially on T-Day of all D-Days. Ino looked at Hinata. You said it. I can't believe the villagers did something like that on the night of the Kyuubi festival. It's supposed to be a night when we all get together in honor of the fourth Hokage for saving us, not chasing down and beating up Naruto. At least that's what I understood from my parents and all the adults. Sakura nodded in agreement again. She honestly didn't know what was worse. The fact the villagers tried to kill her teammate when he was only 8 years old, or that they tried to do it on the happiest night of the year for the leaf. Either one just made Sakura angry towards the villagers and even more disheartened and worried about Naruto. How come Naruto never mentioned this? Or Iruka-sensei, or even the third Hokage? Naruto, why didn't you ever tell us they did that to you? Why didn't you ever tell me? Hinata looked at Ino and Sakura in shock before her expression turned to sadness and understanding. Why you two don't know what's also today? Do you? Sakura and Ino looked at each other in confusion, wondering what Hinata was talking about and if the other could explain what she was referring to. When Ino shrugged her shoulders, indicating she doesn't know, they turned back to Hinata. Today is Naruto-kun's BBB birthday. The next scream both girls did practically broke the sound barrier. WHAAT? It was incredible that Hinata didn't fall out of her chair from the power of Sakura and Ino's lungs. She was holding onto the table for dear life as her body wouldn't stop shaking from the sheer volume of their screaming. Of course, Sakura's next outburst didn't help settle her nerves. It's Naruto's birthday today. Hinata, not being to withstand it anymore, flew off the table. She laid sprawled on the ground with her eyes in spirals. Ino and Sakura immediately rushed over and helped her back up onto the table. Hinata's bodyguards also rushed over, but Hinata held her hand up, letting them know she was fine. After she got settled back into her chair, Sakura and Ino started apologizing, but she told them it was fine. An awkward silence followed before Sakura broke it. I can't believe Naruto didn't say anything. I can't believe he didn't tell us it was his birthday today. So, Naruto wouldn't tell me that too? Why would he keep something like that a secret? None of this makes any sense. Sakura's depression for Naruto earlier felt like it just now increased 100-fold. Between his strange change in behavior, finding out the villagers formed a lynch mob and attacked him when he was a child, and that they did it on both the Kyuubi festival and his birthday. She felt more than anything that she wanted to find Naruto right now and give him a big hug. That or strangle him for not telling her any of this. She also had a desire to pull pranks on all the villagers before the night ends. She didn't know which to do first. Sakura started to think of all the possible reasons why Naruto wouldn't tell her, their sensei, or hell even Sasuke about his birthday. It's not like he had anyone else to celebrate it with. Iruka-sensei probably took him out to ramen, since she never heard of him throwing Naruto a party or giving him presents, because Naruto would have talked about it non-stop if he did. She and the rest of Team 7 could have thrown a party for him and had gifts. Her eyes widened as she realized and cursed at herself once again for being stupid and insensitive. Naruto had no one. No family, no relatives. No one, aside from hanging out with Iruka-sensei. Most of the time Naruto has been alone. He never even had a hug until she gave him one in the forest of death to calm him down. Coming to this festival may have been the closest thing he had to celebrating his birthday, and that fish he won may have been the closest thing to a present he ever got too. Until the villagers took that all away from him. Maybe he didn't tell them because it was all too painful. Painful enough to not want to share with anyone, not even his own team. Perhaps it was also too painful to ever want to celebrate his birthday again. Sakura started to clutch her heart again. It was hurting so bad. She started to feel cold again too. Like some wind came out of nowhere and was somehow colder than the already chilling night air as it washed over her. She started to shiver from its unearthly cold touch. Come on, let's go, Sakura. You too, Hinata. Sakura and Hinata looked at Ino in confusion, both wondering where Ino was intending on dragging them off to. Probably to go shopping. That's what Ino usually does when she feels sad or depressed about something. We're all going to go shopping to buy Naruto presents? Yep, Ino wanted to shop all right. Of course, neither of them expected her to say that they were all going to go shopping to get presents for Naruto's birthday. Sakura and Hinata looked at each other, and then back at Ino again, wondering if their friend was substituted with an enemy ninja that was transformed as her. Ino rolled her eyes and placed her hands on her hips in annoyance. Look, I've always found Naruto to be annoying and to have poor fashion taste, but by God, I'm not going to let him spend his birthday without getting at least one present all right. Every person deserves at least that much on their birthday. Well, except murderers, rapists, traitors. Well, you get the picture. She pointed an accusing finger at Sakura. And you, forehead. Out of all of us, you should have the most obligation to get him a gift. He's your teammate and friend, and yet you weren't planning on getting him anything for his birthday. But ID? Sakura was cut off as Ino covered her mouth with her hand. No, but's billboard brow. Like I said, he's your teammate and friend. So you are coming with me and Hinata, and you are going to get Naruto a very special gift, or so help me, I will use my mind transfer jutsu on you again. And when I find Naruto, I'll make you kiss him. And I mean really kiss him, Sakura? Hinata's face started to blush fiercely until it became as red as a tomato from Ino's threat, and she fainted. Ino noticed this and immediately rushed to her side, while her bodyguard's sweat dropped at Lady Hinata fainting again. As Ino was so focused on waking Hinata up, she didn't notice that Sakura's face was also blushing. She clutched her heart again, which was no longer aching in pain, but was beating 100 miles a minute. She didn't understand what was making her heart beat so fast. She's never felt like this, not even when Sasuke complimented her on her forehead that day in the park. After some slow breathing, she was able to get it to calm down. Ino was still busy trying to wake Hinata up, which left Sakura thinking. She realized Ino was right. She had to get Naruto a gift, not just because it was her obligation as a teammate and friend, but because she wanted to. Those cruel villagers practically took the joy of celebrating his birthday away from him. Maybe she could help give some of it back. Sakura started to smile. Yes, she would give some of it back, and maybe Naruto will get so happy from her gift that he'll go back to being normal. The thought of Naruto jumping around, acting all hyper and shouting that he'll become Hokage again, made her feel a little giddy inside, and she started to blush a little again. She got up from her seat and started to help Ino wake Hinata up. She wanted to get started on shopping for his gift right away. She wanted to see the look on his face when she gave him his present. Just the thought started to make her blush more. Unknown to them, a group of villagers nearby were scowling and glaring at them as they mentioned the demon brat's name constantly over and over with such disgusting sympathy. The boy was a demon through, and demons don't deserve that or birthday presents. They don't even deserve the simple pleasures of life. The group of villagers all grinned sadistically at each other. For after tonight, the Kyuubi brat wouldn't even have that in the village. No, he was going to learn the same pain they felt when the beast attacked them 12 years ago. A pain that's been long overdue. Leaf Hospital, the lights of the festival could be seen glimmering from the window of his hospital room. However, as beautiful and captivating as it was, it did little to attract the attention of Sasuke Uchiha as he sat up in his hospital bed in deep thought, thinking about the recent uninvited visitors he had not just an hour ago. Visitors that came with a very tempting offer. An offer that may come once in a lifetime that would greatly aid him in achieving his goal. The goal which was to kill his brother and restore his clan. Such an opportunity may never come again, and he was eager. So eager to avenge his parents and the rest of his fallen clan members. That's what his purpose was after all. To be an avenger. Still, as good as the offer was, it demanded very steep prices. Things that he would have to give up and let go if he hopes to attain this promised power. The power needed to defeat Itachi. There was one requirement he had to fulfill above all the others, though, that weighed heavily on his mind. One that he was not sure if he had the strength or will to do it. He started to recall the group of shinobi he met recently in this room. The parting words their leader gave him before they left. Flashback an hour ago, Sasuke Uchiha slept uneasily in his hospital bed. His dreams haunted by two individuals. One was the being who has been plaguing his mind since the Uchiha massacre. His older brother Itachi. The other was his own teammate. The teammate that has been growing stronger and stronger while he's remained the same since the Chunin exams. The teammate whose own power and rage has been starting to greatly eclipse his own. No matter how hard he tried or how much he improved, his brother was still too far ahead of him, as was evidenced when he humiliated him just a little over a month ago. That and now his comrade has been leaving him behind in the dust. It had to be that accursed power of his, a power that should be his. He had the right. He was an Uchiha. There was no way he could be outdone by a loser like him. No way. Sasuke's nightmare was interrupted as his window slammed open, causing the raven-haired boy's eyes to snap open. His eyes darted to the window and found that no one was there. The curtains were blowing and flapping from the wind. "Sorry if we woke you up, Uchiha." Sasuke's eyes darted to the foot of his bed, where 4 individuals stood before him. One had dark skin and 4 arms. The other was a large, fat man that looked to be at least 6 feet tall. Another was a short, red-haired woman that had a nasty-looking scowl on her face. The last, who appeared to be the leader of the group, had blue-grayish hair and what appeared to be a second head. Sasuke's eyes widened when he noticed that their headbands were that of the Sound Village, the village that was responsible for the invasion. He started to flash through some hand signs, but the large, fat man body flickered to the right of his bedside and grabbed the Uchiha's face. Pressing it down hard against the pillow, Sasuke struggled and squirmed against the large man's grip. He could have tried calling for help, but his Uchiha pride wouldn't allow it. Not to mention that apart from his right eye, his whole face was covered by the large and what felt like grimy hand of his assailant. So he wouldn't be able to call out even if he wanted to. His head felt like it was going to pop from the pressure this large man was putting on his head. It was also getting harder to breathe. If he didn't think of something fast, he'd be done for in his own hospital bed. Jirobo, remember, Lord Orochimaru wants him alive. The large man looked up at the dark-skinned one and grumbled. I never get to have any fun, the red-haired woman scowled. Quit complaining, you fat sack of crap. Enough, all of you. Jirobo, let him up. The large man looked at the one with 2 heads and grumbled a bit more before releasing the boy. The Uchiha gasped for breath before he regained his composure and stared cautiously at the uninvited guests. Who are you? The man with the 2 heads looked at the Uchiha boy before answering. We are the mightiest of Lord Orochimaru's servants, the Sound Four. Sasuke eyed each member of the group, making sure no one was going to jump him again. He's pretty sure they didn't come to kill him since that one ordered the big guy to back off. Not to mention the 4 armed ones said that Orochimaru wanted him alive, which means that they're likely here to take him to the foul snake. If that was the case, though, why didn't they just take him already? The fat one called Jirobo could have just knocked him out or suffocated him long enough till he lost consciousness. Something else was going on here, but what? It was time the Uchiha found out. Why are you here? The 4-armed man answered. We came here to give you a message from Lord Orochimaru. Sasuke didn't like where this was going. Nothing from Orochimaru was ever good. Still, he was curious, so he inquired. What message? The 2-headed man smiled before answering. Lord Orochimaru wants you to come with us back to the Sound Village. If you cooperate, he will bestow upon you strength and power beyond your wildest imagination. Strength that you have yet to attain from the curse mark he has already given you. Sasuke instinctively rubbed his neck where the curse mark was. Remembering the power it gave him in the Forest of Death. Power he wanted to test and experience, but wasn't given the chance due to his teammate going on a rampage with that own strange power of his. That and his sensei placing a seal on it to keep it from controlling him again. If there was more power within the curse mark than what he felt in the forest, then he couldn't help but be more interested in this offer. This village is doing nothing more than stripping you of your potential. You could have become so much more right now if you didn't allow yourself to be chained here like a dog. Why do you waste your time here with these weaklings? Lord Orochimaru offers you power. The 4-armed man and red-haired girl had good points. Sasuke has recently felt like his training and skills weren't getting anywhere in this village. It didn't seem like there was anything left for him to learn or gain here. Nothing that he could use to become stronger. But it was his home. He couldn't abandon it and his friends to achieve more power. Could he? If you come with us, we will show you how to unlock the next level of your curse mark. After that, when we reach the Sound Village, our master will give you even more power. Surely you have a desire to grow stronger, a desire to fulfill your goals and true purpose in life. Once again, Sasuke thought of his true reason for existing. To destroy Itachi and avenge his clan, he had to accomplish that goal, no matter what it takes. We will wait for you answer until the day after tomorrow, on the outskirts of the village on top of the hill overlooking it. If we haven't heard from you by then, we will take you by force if necessary. Only a weakling and a fool would resist against the will of Lord Orochimaru. The 4 sound shinobi started to slink back into the darkness of the back of his room, with only the 2-headed man remaining, apparently having a little more to say. There's one last thing. If you do decide to join us, Lord Orochimaru requires that you bring him something as proof of your loyalty. It would also help you become stronger in your goal of attaining ultimate power. Sasuke's curiosity was at its peak, wondering what he had to do that would help him become stronger and to gain even more power from the snake Sannin. Whatever it was, it would likely have to be extremely difficult. Sasuke hated to admit it, but he felt kind of excited for the challenge. He wants you to bring him the head of your teammate, Naruto Uzumaki. Sasuke's eyes widened in shock. the man's just recently spoken words echoing slowly through his head. He had to kill Naruto, his own teammate and friend, just to gain this power. The excitement he had just moments ago all but diminished completely. His mind already starting to think into overdrive. The two-headed man started to step back into his shadows that his teammates disappeared into. Do not forget your true purpose. After those words, he was gone, and Sasuke was alone in his room. End flashback, any true shinobi of the leaf wouldn't even think about taking this offer. Yet Sasuke sat here debating with himself back and forth with it. Unfortunately for him, the desire to protect and carry out his duty to the leaf and his friends was losing to his hunger for power and vengeance. It was all there waiting for him. All that power and his best chance at beating Itachi. All he had to do was leave the village and his friends to join the man responsible for attacking his home. Then again, the village has never really felt like his home since his clan was wiped out. All the sympathetic looks from the adults and crazy hungry eyes from the girls of his age in this village has irritated and disgusted him to no end. They could not begin to understand the losses he suffered through, the betrayal he suffered through, the loneliness he suffered through. There was only one person in this village who truly knew the pain of being alone. The very same teammate who he ridiculed, argued with, fought side by side with, trained together with, respected, and probably the closest thing to a best friend he had. Naruto Uzumaki. It was that same friend that he would have to kill. Sasuke pressed his hands against his temples like he was trying to suppress a headache. He couldn't kill Naruto. It was crazy. He wants to become stronger to make his brother pay, but not like this. Not where he would have to betray and kill the one person who could possibly be his only friend. The one who more than most understands his pain. Then again, what if there was no other way? What if killing Naruto and leaving the village was the only path that would lead him to ending his brother? What if he doesn't take it and will never get to experience killing that evil bastard with his own hands? Besides, while the Dobi may know what it feels to be alone, he doesn't know what it's like to lose someone. He was lucky. He never got to know his parents before they died, so he didn't have to feel the pain of their loss. And he's always been bragging about becoming Hokage. The fool. There was no way a weakling like him could ever achieve that title, especially when considering that he's flunked the academy several times. He was a loser. Sasuke stopped pressing his hands into his head as he started to realize something. If he was such a loser, then why was he allowed to pass the academy when he flunked the graduation exam? Why was he able to defeat Haku? How did he come to possess that power he witnessed in the Forest of Death? Why and how was able to get one of the legendary Sannin as a teacher? Why and how was able to master the Rasengan? Why and how was he able to defeat that rogue ninja that wielded the sword of the second Hokage? More and more questions kept piling up in his mind for what felt like days, until he came to the same conclusion he did before that's been causing him to stew like this. Naruto was improving. He was growing stronger and stronger while Sasuke was staying the same. The tables were turned with Naruto now being the one ahead and him being left behind. Sasuke's fingers started to dig into his palms from how tight he held his fists. He wasn't going to allow this. No, he was an Uchiha. He is the one that is destined to become the strongest and leave everyone else behind. Not Naruto, he had to become stronger. He needed to become stronger. He will become stronger. I have to beat him. No, I have to beat them. Hokage Monument. The air was cold, and the wind blew on top of the Hokage Monument. The cold would cause most to complain, but not the boy sitting on top of the fourth Hokage's head. He was used to it, used to the cold bite of the wind, just as much as he was used to the cold treatment dealt to him by the ungrateful villagers that partied down below him, partying to his misery and suffering. A suffering he must go through just so they could celebrate the day of his birth as the day that this curse was inflicted on him. The duty of bearing the Kyuubi no Kitsune, that was Naruto Uzumaki's curse. Naruto sat here in his orange jumpsuit wishing nothing more than to go down there and pull pranks on every single villager partying to his pain. No, he was no longer a child. He is a shinobi. He should beat the crap out of them instead. Those spoiled bastards wouldn't even be alive right now if it wasn't for me. Then, why don't you go down there and do something about it? Naruto shook his head and pinched the bridge of his nose like he was trying to suppress a headache. After what happened between him and the Kyuubi a few days ago, more and more Naruto has been feeling himself slipping, almost like he was losing a part of himself, a very important part of himself, and he knew what he was losing it to. He was losing himself to all these thoughts of anger, rage, and pain that have been plaguing his mind for what felt like an eternity. He's tried everything to get himself to let it all go. to just accept what has happened between him and his sensei, his denial of promotion, the hatred of the villagers, and most of all Sakura's love for Sasuke. Nothing worked. Worst of all was that the Kyuubi has sensed this, and has been trying to get Naruto to let his rage out by unleashing it on the villagers. Naruto has tried his best to ignore him, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. The festival below certainly wasn't helping the situation either. After a while, he heard the Kyuubi grumble and complain before falling back to sleep. He really wished Iruka-sensei were here. Ever since the mob incident when he was 8, he spent all the previous festivals, following said incident, on top of the Hokage monument. The orphan boy would often sit up here alone, watching everyone having fun below, until he would smell the sweet scent of delicious ramen, and he would turn to see Iruka-sensei with a bag of several takeout orders from Ikaraku. Then they would eat and laugh together while watching the fireworks that would shoot up and litter the sky with their beautiful explosions. Unfortunately, it was not to be this year. Iruka had been called out on a long-term mission and wouldn't be back for some time. At least that's what he learned when he asked him about it. Now, here he is spending the evening completely alone and isolated on top of the Hokage monument. Not even one of his friends had bothered to check up on him. Not his team, not Pervy Sage, no one. Then again, Sasuke was in the hospital. He was still mad at Kakashi-sensei. Pervy Sage was probably peeking on girls, and Sakura is probably mad at him for blowing her off. Naruto started to feel even more depressed. He knew he really hurt Sakura's feelings. He should have just said yes and taken her to the festival. It was something he always wanted, to be on a date with Sakura. The reason he couldn't accept her offer was that he wanted her to take him because she wanted to not because she was scraping the bottom of the barrel for dates. Not to mention, there was no telling how the villagers would have reacted if they saw her with him attending the festival. Being with him might turn her into a pariah with the villagers. Naruto would not have that. He would not have Sakura go through the same cold stares and torture from the villagers he still suffers through. He would rather die than allow that to happen to her. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted as his nose picked up a very familiar and delicious aroma, one that he was all too familiar with. The young shinobi turned around hoping that Iruka-sensei was back from his mission. To his surprise, it wasn't him, but his other precious person, Palpatine Sidasaki, who had a bag of what looked like ramen from Ikaraku. "Pardon me, my dear boy, but is this seat taken?" Naruto was surprised that the old man was able to find him up here. He didn't think that someone like Old Man Palp would be able to track him down on top of the 4th Hokage's head. He wouldn't have been surprised if his other friends found him since they were trained to track people down. "That old man sure is something." Naruto greeted Palpatine with a big wide fox grin and patted the spot next to him. "Not at all. Help yourself." Palpatine smiled and sat down next to Naruto. The old man opened the bag and placed bowls in front of them, where Naruto proceeded to dig in after thanking for the food. Palpatine proceeded to eat his ramen at a slow pace, while Naruto scarfed down his bowls like they were trying to get away. After a few minutes of eating several ramen bowls, Naruto decided to inquire why his friend wasn't attending the festival. "Hey, old man Palp, why aren't you down at the festival with everyone else?" Naruto couldn't help but wonder why the old man wasn't down there partying with the other villagers. Surely it was more fun down there than up here. It was also much warmer, too. The old man looked at the young shinobi and smiled. "It's rather a bit too crowded for me down there. I'm not as young as I used to be, and celebrating with a large crowd of civilians is more of a young man's game. Up here it's more peaceful, and I was also told it's the perfect spot to watch the fireworks." As if on cue, a red rocket shot into the air and exploded, showering the night with red sparkles. Then a green one shot up, then a blue, until the whole sky became showered with various colors. Naruto watched in awe at the fireworks. This was always his favorite part of the festival. Not to mention that old man Palp was right. This was the best spot for watching them. "I also came to find you, Naruto." Naruto looked at his friend. "You were looking for me?" Palpatine nodded before reaching into his robe and pulled out a box. He unwrapped the string around it and opened it to reveal a slice of chocolate cake. The old man then took out a candle and inserted it into the cake. Then he used a match to lit the candle. He handed the cake over to Naruto, who was confused with the gesture. "Happy birthday, Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto's eyes widened, and his eyes became engulfed with tears. Droplets were dripping down his face like his eyes were faucets. These weren't tears of sorrow, though. These were tears of joy. The only one who's ever wished him a happy birthday was Iruka, but not even he has ever given him a birthday cake. He looked at his friend with tears still flowing out of his eyes. I don't know what to say." The old man smiled and placed his hand on the boy's back and patted him. "You don't have to say anything. Just blow out the candle and make a wish." Naruto wiped his eyes with his sleeve and smiled. He took deep breath and blew out the candle, knowing exactly what he wanted to wish for. "I wish for everyone in the village to appreciate and acknowledge me for who I am." Naruto then proceeded to gobble up the slice of cake. It was so delicious. The blonde boy has never had chocolate cake before. Now he knew what he's been missing all these years. Naruto licked his lips and sucked the chocolate off his fingers. The chocolate frosting was so good. He wished there were more, but he would just have to settle for that one piece. Naruto looked at the man and smiled. However, he was also confused. How did the old man know today was his birthday? "Uruka Yumino told me when your birthday would be." Naruto nodded and smiled. Even when going on a mission, he could still count on his former sensei. Still, the boy couldn't help but feel saddened by the fact that his brother figure couldn't be here to join them. Naruto turned back to watching the fireworks as they started to take different shapes. A few minutes passed before Palpatine spoke. "Naruto, there was another reason I came to find you. You know that I have not been able to rely on the Lady Hawkeye or the Council, particularly when it came to matters concerning your career and well-being. If they haven't included you in their plot, they soon will." Naruto looked at Palpatine with a bewildered expression. "I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, old man Palp." Palpatine returned his gaze to the fireworks but continued speaking. "Your force powers have long since allowed you to feel others' thoughts. You must sense what I have come to suspect. Lady Tsunade, Jiraiya and Kakashi Hatake along with the Leaf Council want control over you and your abilities. They're planning to betray you." Naruto felt all the warm and happy thoughts within him vanish completely at Palpatine's revelation. It couldn't be true. They were his friends, his precious people. They would never do such a thing to him. Maybe the council would since they never had any compassion for him but his friends. It cannot be true. The old man must be mistaken. He must be. "I don't think that." "Naruto, search your feelings, you know, don't you?" Naruto didn't want to admit it, but he felt that something was off about Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Kakashi lately. Ever since he was denied of his promotion, he could sense that they were hiding something from him. He didn't know what it was, but he could feel their fear of him finding out the truth. "I know that there is something they've been keeping from me." Palpatine nodded, as if that was the answer he was expecting to hear from the boy. "As have the villagers, your classmates, and even Hiruzen Sarutobi before his untimely death. It seems that the only person around here who is not allowed the luxury of knowing any of these secrets that concern you is you, my boy." Naruto looked back at the fireworks as they started to explode red, orange, and yellow rockets. "I have to admit my trust in Granny, Pervy Sage, and Kakashi-sensei has been shaken, along with my relationship with the villagers." "Why?" Palpatine looked at the boy with curiosity to his confession. "They neglected and treated you with cruelty for something that was done to you to protect themselves, didn't they?" Suddenly, a large rocket exploded. The red sparkles and flares taking the shape of a giant red fox with 9 tails. Palpatine saw the image out of the corner of his eye and noticed Naruto flinch as he looked upon the image of the beast as it faded away. "They hate you for the Kyuubi being sealed inside you, don't they?" Naruto closed his eyes and scrunched his face. The moment he dreaded for months has finally come. Old man Palp now knows that he has the fox sealed inside him. It may have been in the form of a question, but Naruto couldn't lie about it any more to him. Not after everything this kind man has done for the boy. He wished he knew how to explain it to the old man. I don't know what to say." He just hoped his friend wouldn't hate him for it. Hate and fear him like those damn fools below them. To his surprise, the old man didn't run away or shouted at him that he was a demon. He remained calm and stayed where he was. "There is something you must come to realize about leaders, Naruto. There are those who will sacrifice anyone to keep their power, and those who will sacrifice anyone to keep the people they lead safe. Even Hokages." Naruto couldn't believe Palpatine would say that. Being Hokage was his dream, his goal. Yet he described it as nothing more than a position where you do nothing but sacrifice others for one cause or another. The old man used his position as Hokage for good. He never sacrificed anyone's life to stay in power or to keep the village safe. He kept his title for years because he was a good man and has even given his life to protect the village. Granny didn't even want the job because she thought it just gets people killed, but now she has it and is running things the same way the old man did. She helped heal Sasuke and Lee. She rebuilt the village. made peace with the sand, and she did all of that without sacrificing anyone. She even gave me this necklace which belonged to the first Hokage, because she believes that I'll achieve that title one day. I can't say anything about the first or second Hokage, but I'm sure they ran things the same way too. Palpatine still didn't look like he was convinced. And the fourth Hokage did not sacrifice others as well. The Genin didn't know how to respond to that question. How could he, when after all the fourth Hokage did sacrifice someone to protect this village? He sacrificed Naruto's happiness and chance of having a normal life to keep the village safe. Still, it wasn't the same as if he sacrificed the boy's actual life. Right, that and he was defending the village against the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the mightiest of all the Biju. The man clearly had limited options against such a powerful foe and even gave his life to stop it. The fourth Hokage did what he had to do to keep the village safe, even if it meant that I had to pay the price along with him. Palpatine turned his attention back to the fireworks. The beautiful explosions started to take on the shapes of the symbols for the leaf and the fourth Hokage. A few seconds passed until he spoke again. Did you ever hear the tragedy of the former Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi? Naruto turned his gaze back to his friend with a puzzled look. Pervy Sage told him all about what Jinchuriki were. They were basically people who were vessels of Biju like him and Gaara. Despite that, though, he's never heard of any other Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi before him. No, Palpatine nodded. I thought not. It's not a story Yatsune or anyone of the older generation of shinobi would tell you. It's one of the many secrets of the village's past. Naruto's attention, while was already captured when Palpatine mentioned another Jinchuriki with the Kyuubi, was even more captivated by this story now. The former Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune was a refugee from the former Whirlpool country. It was because of her clan and bloodline that she was chosen to be the vessel for the terrible beast when its previous host was dying of old age. The village gave her little to no choice in the matter. If she wanted to remain and be kept safe in the village, then in exchange, she had to become its secret weapon, to help maintain the balance of power between the 5 great nations. The villagers despised her, of course, and thought of her as little more than either a demon or a weapon of war for a time. Yet, she was so powerful, and so wise she could use seals to protect against and tame Biju. She had such a knowledge of seals, and possessed such unmatched beauty and kindness, that she eventually managed to win the respect and admiration of the entire village. If Naruto were sitting in a chair, then he would practically be leaning over it. He couldn't believe it. This former Jinchuriki actually achieved what he has longed for his whole life. She actually gained everyone's appreciation. Why hasn't he ever heard of her? Who was she? As all of these questions popped into his head, there was one. He needed to hear one answer above the rest. What happened to her? Palpatine's face became more serious as he continued the story. She became so loved that she even won the feelings of the man she herself fell in love with. His name was Minato Namikaze. She shared and taught him her knowledge of her clan's seals. Doing so allowed him to become a master of Fuinjutsu. Eventually, they became married, and soon after that the man's skills led him to be chosen as the 4th Hokage. It wasn't long after when the woman became pregnant with the 4th Hokage's child. Unfortunately, on the night when she was giving birth to their baby boy, the Kyuubi escaped from her seal. The beast attacked the village in vengeance of its imprisonment, and for being treated as nothing more than a tool for the village. It could not be resealed inside the woman due to her strength weakening from giving birth to her child, and from the beast escaping from her body. As Palpatine continued telling the story, the color of the fireworks started to change to darker red. Before the entire village could be destroyed, the 4th Hokage formulated a horribly cruel plan. Since the child inherited his mother's strength and bloodline, he was the only one who could contain the beast. The woman begged and pleaded her husband not to have their child carry such a terrible burden. In the end, however, she could not refuse the man she loved and married. Even when he said that, as the Hokage, his duty was to their village. He could not allow the Kyuubi to run rampant, and to have the leaf without its greatest weapon, and only means of maintaining the leaf's status of power among the 5 great nations, meaning that he was willing to choose the safety and welfare of their village over that of his own son, and so he did. The 4th Hokage sealed the Kyuubi in his own child, but not before the demon ended both of their lives, forcing the child to grow up all alone, being feared and hated by the very people who were saved by his own parents. The last of the fireworks exploded, just as Palpatine finished telling the tale, before the sky once again returned to the darkness of the night. It's a cruel irony that his mother could gain their love, but the boy still could not. Naruto's mind and soul were both shaken to the core. Tears were pouring out of his eyes as if they were barely holding back a river. The boy's body trembled violently like he was having a seizure. The ramen bowls in front of him started to crack, and small rocks began to float around him. He turned to Palpatine to ask one final question. What was the name of this woman? Naruto was practically breaking. He sounded like it was taking everything he had to hold all his emotions in with that question. One look at him would tell that the boy was either going to break down at Palpatine's response or go completely berserk. Palpatine fully turned to the boy and gave his answer. Kushina Uzumaki. Meanwhile, in the shopping district, Sakura, Ino, and Hinata were browsing around the various shops and stands, trying to find the perfect gifts for Naruto's birthday. Each of them had trouble figuring out what to get the hyperactive, or rather former hyperactive knucklehead. After looking at various items and goods, they each managed to find something they thought the boy would enjoy. While they were satisfied with what they got him, they decided that his big day would be even better with a birthday cake. So they started perusing through some bakeries to find a delicious cake for the birthday boy. They happened upon one bakery that had very tasty, exquisite-looking cakes, and the owner seemed very nice. That is until they mentioned that the cake was for Naruto Uzumaki. Then the owner kicked them out of the store and told them never to come back again. Ino and Sakura were not happy and were venting out their frustrations while heading to the next bakery with Hinata, which is where we now find the three kunoichis of the leaf. Man, I can't believe that jerk. What the hell did he throw us out for? We didn't do anything wrong. Sakura fully agreed with Ino. They weren't causing any trouble at all, yet the man acted so hostile with them. Sakura was sure that the man looked like he was going to throw his own pastries at them if he hadn't gotten death glares from Hinata's bodyguards. The situation, however, was still odd. He acted crazy the second they mentioned that they were looking for a cake for Naruto. That was when it hit her. The fact that they said the cake was for her teammate was what set him off. But why? Naruto never did anything to him. Did he? Maybe at one point Naruto pulled a prank on that man, like painting graffiti on his store, or messed with the ingredients of his products. Before she could think further, Sakura's train of thoughts were interrupted by Hinata speaking at an alarming tone. Hey W, why is there smoke coming from over there? Sakura and Ino both turned to where Hinata was pointing, and both became alarmed as they saw a huge column of smoke coming from what looked like the residential area. It looks like a fire. Come on, let's go. There could be people in trouble. Sakura and Hinata with her guards followed Ino's lead and headed towards the area where the smoke was coming from. Center of the village at the Hawkage Tower, Tsunade was beyond exhausted both mentally and physically. After she gave a half-heart speech about the fourth Hawkage sacrifice and the will of fire never burning out in the village, she wanted nothing more than to go home and escape from this sickening festival. Being Hawkage, however, had its drawbacks, meaning she had to stay and participate in the dancing that took place after the speech. It was tradition that the Hawkage would start off the first dance with her partner before everyone else joined in. Never in a million years did Tsunade ever think that she would allow herself to dance with Jiraiya. To her surprise, though the toad pervert never made any moves or sultry comments to her. He complimented her on her beauty, but he didn't mean anything perverse by it, and she also found it flattering. She was also disappointed that Naruto didn't come to the festival, not that she could blame him. If she were in his predicament, she wouldn't ever attend a festival full of people celebrating her misery, and would find any means to force her out if she did attend. You know, I always knew you wouldn't be happy being on a date with me, but I never thought you would wear such awful fake smiles to hide it. Jiraiya was referring to how Tsunade has been showing off a fake grin the entire night. He wasn't annoyed by it or took it as her being unhappy about being with him. Still, he felt he had to lighten the mood so that she could enjoy some of the night. Tsunade, however, didn't look like she was finding the joke amusing at all. In fact, her fake smile twitched quite a bit, and she looked like she was about ready to snap. That is until Jiraiya started trying to calm her down. Whoa, easy there, Tsunadeheim. Just trying to bring out a real smile from you as all. Tsunade still didn't drop her fake grin, but at least it stopped twitching. Do you always have to call me that, Jiraiya? You know that there's no chance of me ever falling for you. Especially after you wrote all that perverted garbage you call books, and that time, I caught you peeking in the women's bath. Jiraiya formed a grin of his own. It wasn't a lecherous one or one of perversion. It was a kind, heartwarming smile. Don't be so sure, Tsunadeheim. We still have the rest of our lives, and a lot can change in that time. Also, I'll have you know that my books are works of art, not garbage. Jiraiya started pouting. It was fake, of course, since he had thicker skin than that, and he was just trying to look cute. Tsunade rolled her eyes, but was a little amused by the gesture. Yeah, we'll see about that. Jiraiya suddenly pulled her a bit closer to his body. Not enough to make her feel uncomfortable or to call down the thunder of her wrath, but enough to make her blush a little at the bold move. She looked up at him without any fake smiles, but with a startled expression. We sure will. Lady Hokage. Tsunade looked over to see one of the guards, who was stationed around the area, running towards her with an alarming look on his face. There's a fire in the Residential district. Both Tsunade and Jiraiya looked at each other, and immediately leapt into action with Kakashi, Shizune, and Anbu guards following them. The group of shinobi sped fast through the village across the rooftops, until they ran into a smaller group also heading towards the fire. Kakashi-sensei! Kakashi saw that it was Sakura, Ino, and Hinata, followed by a couple of Hyuga guards. Sakura, you saw the smoke, Sakura nodded. Yeah, we thought that there might be trouble. Oh no. All heads turned to Jiraiya, who was standing wide-eyed at the large pillar of smoke that was emanating from the residential district of the village. The good news was that it looked like it was coming from the older part of the district, where not as many villagers took up residency. However, a few members of the group started to get a bad feeling when that area started to look very familiar to them, like there was something important about it. That's where Naruto lives. Jiraiya's revelation instantly jogged everyone's memories. That was indeed where their little blonde shinobi lived. The two groups no longer wasted any time and instantly took off to the source of the smoke. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Shizune, and Sakura were in the front of the group, while everyone else followed behind. They were all beyond worried for the little Gaki. While their running didn't take long for them, it felt like it took an eternity. An eternity to reach a sight that absolutely horrified them. They all stood stunned with terror as Naruto's apartment building was ablaze. Flames were pouring out of the windows and the various cracks in the walls. The heat made it difficult to get within even 100 feet of the building. That and the building looked like it was about to collapse any second. Tsunade turned to the Anbu and began shouting her orders. I want a perimeter set up around the building. Gather our best water-style users and bring them here to put the flames out. We need to evacuate any survivors from the building immediately before it comes down. Lady Tsunade, look. Tsunade turned to where Shizune pointed to see a man running from the flames. You there, stop. The man turned to Tsunade and recognized who she was before running to her while the Anbu went to their assigned tasks. Lady Hokage. The man appeared to be about in his 70s. He panted and wheezed from the smoke and had a nasty gash upside his head. Shizune helped settle the old man down and started healing him while checking for other injuries. When it appeared that he had none, Tsunade began asking what happened. How did this fire start? Where are the other residents of the building? The old man looked at the Hokage and told her what happened. We all got a note today that said we had to evacuate the building by nightfall. Said something about taking care of a pest problem. I thought it was a hoax. Kids playing a practical joke, until I noticed that everyone in the building packed up and left. The only ones still around were me and the Uzumaki boy. I thought it was very strange. I went to ask the super about it when I saw some punks in one of the vacant apartments up to no good. It looked like they were trying to start a fire. They saw me and one of them knocked me out. When I woke up, I smelled smoke and saw that the building was in flames. I got out of there as fast as I could. I just hope the kid isn't still in the building. Everyone darted their eyes to the complex with fear that Naruto might still be inside. Naruto. Sakura immediately dashed towards the hellish fire until Ino grabbed her. Sakura, you can't go in there. You'll be killed. We have to wait and hope the ANBU find him if he's still inside. Sakura struggled against the firm grip of her rival. She didn't care about the fire. She had to make sure Naruto was safe. Sakura's struggles came to a halt when the building began to creak and moan before it finally collapsed. Eyes widened as the apartment complex was now nothing more than a pile of burning cinders and wood beams. Tsunade herself started to make a break for the pile. That was until Jiraiya and Shizune grabbed hold of her to keep her back. It was extremely difficult due to Tsunade's immense strength. She started to drag them across the ground, causing their feet to dig and grind against it, leaving a trail. Sakura followed her example and began to drag Ino, though it became difficult when Hinata and Kakashi jumped in to help restrain her. Both Tsunade and Sakura's struggles ceased when a mob started to form around the perimeter fence. The Anbu were setting up and began to cheer. They all looked in horror as the group of villagers were cheering for the burning of the building. Sakura felt like she was having a bad dream. She didn't understand why the villagers could possibly be cheering for something as horrible as this. Her teammate could be dead, and yet those villagers were yelling and screaming for joy like it was the most wonderful thing that ever happened. Sakura's body suddenly began to feel deathly cold. She started to shiver violently. Something did not feel right. This chilling feeling, whatever it was, felt so unnatural, more out of place than the previous cold episodes before, like it was a shadow that felt as if it was looming over her and the whole village. Tsunade started to grit her teeth in rage of the heartlessness of the villagers. They were going too far this time. She has absolutely had it with the backwards thinking of these villagers. She wasn't the only one. Jirya was also glaring daggers at the mob. Finally, unable to take it anymore, Tsunade decided she was going to order her Anbu to round up these civilians for interrogation by Ibiki. Crack. Dead silence fell upon the crowd at the thundering earth-splitting sound that was coming from the Hawkage monument. All eyes looked up and were shocked to see there was a large crack that ran across the face of the fourth Hawkage. It was long and deep, and it looked like it was getting bigger as it started to snake its way, forming spider web-like tendrils all over the former Hawkage's face. Everyone began to shout in fear that the face was going to crumble apart with the pieces falling straight onto the homes and buildings below. After a few seconds, though, the cracks stopped spreading and the head remained intact. The damage to the monument's face, though, was very severe. While everyone stood in shock of what just happened to the monument, honoring the man who saved them all from the Kyuubi, Tsunade took this chance to order her Anbu to round up everyone in the mob for questioning about the fire. She also sent another division to the Hawkage monument to see if there were saboteurs responsible for the damage. Her tone of voice, from her first order, struck fear into most members of the crowd. Everyone knew of Tsunade's reputation for her temper, but the killer intent in her eyes had many believed those rumors did her no justice. The Anbu and most of the shinobi there began their tasks instructed to them by the Hawkage, but Sakura Haruno stood in the same spot the whole time without taking her eyes off the fourth Hawkage's head. She could swear that she saw a small bright red light atop of the fourth's head as the face was cracking. But now there was nothing there but darkness. Still, that did little to set her at ease, because the cold shadow that she was feeling was coming from up there. Next morning, Hawkage's office Tsunade sat in her office, staring menacingly at the small group of villagers in front of her. Standing by her sides were Jirya and Kakashi, the two of which were also giving off threatening looks. They all had good reason when considering that the civilians in question were the ones responsible for torching Naruto's home. Tsunade was beyond furious and exhausted. She spent the whole night either worrying about the Gaki or having to restrain herself from personally interrogating the villagers herself. Being a medic and having monstrous strength would certainly have many uncharted avenues in the art of torture. She was relieved when the Anbu reported that there was no one else in the building when it was on fire, meaning that Naruto was safe. Her mind refused to be at ease, though, for no one has heard or seen the boy all night and morning. There was also the issue of where Naruto would be staying now. Not one of the supers or managers of the other apartment complexes in the village would take him. She was going to consider having him stay with either Jirya or herself and Shizune until Palpatine Sitasaki came, and said he could offer Naruto a room in an apartment complex that he just recently bought. He said Naruto would stay free of charge and in the penthouse suite. Tsunade didn't like the idea. She still didn't completely trust the old man. It was also mysterious as to why he would make such a generous offer for Naruto. She needed more time to think on it. Right now, her attention was solely focused on these criminals before her. Nothing else mattered at this moment, not even repairing the monument of the fourth Hawkage's face. The only exception would be finding out where Naruto is. It didn't take long for Ibiki to get someone, from the mob that formed during the fire, to confess as to who were responsible. After the suspects were rounded up, then Ibiki really got into his interrogation. Apparently, all the individuals in question did it because of the usual nonsense of the boy being a demon who got what he deserved. Now here they were, waiting for the Hawkage to pass sentence upon what their punishment should be. Usually committing something as serious as arson would require the whole council to be present, but this was an exception considering that their crimes extended beyond that. Meaning with all these charges, the Hawkage wouldn't have to wait for the council to show up or to debate on what should be done. She could decide what their punishment would be without them or a trial. Usually, though, it was a common courtesy of the Hokage to wait for the council members to arrive. But Tsunade didn't want to wait for them because she knew if they found out that Naruto was these criminals' target, then their biasness towards him might reduce the charges of these criminals, or even may allow them to walk free. That was something she would not stand for. For the crimes you've all committed, which consists of arson, assault, and the attempted murder of one of our shinobi, you will all be sentenced to life imprisonment. Effective immediately, one of the thugs, a small, skinny man with short, spiky brown hair, spoke up against what he believed to be a harsh punishment. That's outrageous, Lady Hokage. You're going to send us to jail for trying to rid the village of that filthy demon. The others also began to speak out against what they viewed as a ridiculous sentence for trying to do the village a favor, until they were silenced by Tsunade slamming her fist down on her desk. Silence, I don't want to hear a single word out of any of you. I was going to have you all executed for what you did to NarutoXStar's home. The only thing that stopped me was the knowledge that if that boy were Hokage, he would give you all mercy despite what you have done. Slam. Everyone's attention was drawn to the doorway slamming open by none other than Naruto Uzumaki himself. I wouldn't be so sure of that, Tsunade. The boy slowly walked in the room, each step giving off more and more of uneasy feeling for everyone else in the room. His demeanor seemed calm, but his eyes were blazing with red and yellow. His pupils were complete slits, his whisker marks were more defined. His teeth were fangs and his nails were claws. After he reached the middle of the room, he raised his right hand and closed it into a fist. Slam! The door to the office slammed shut by itself. Tsunade turned to Jiraiya, who looked at her with the same worry in his eyes. They both knew Naruto was using that force power again. They were both also shocked that Naruto was actually breaking his promise to Jiraiya, the promise that he wouldn't use this power except for emergencies. They figured Naruto must have found out about his apartment and that the ones responsible were here, which means that they could be dealing with a repeat of what happened to him when he fought Orochimaru. Kakashi's lone eye was wide with shock as well. He was already informed of Naruto's strange new abilities by Jiraiya and Tsunade, but this is the first time he's seeing it. If he were to be honest, it made him feel incredibly anxious and a bit terrified. They weren't exaggerating at all. This is definitely not chakra. Tsunade was about to try calming the poor boy down when one of the criminals decided to open his big, arrogant mouth. See, he's a demon. No human being could do something like that. He's the one that should be punished, not us. If we don't drive him out of the village, Gakak. The man started clawing at his own throat and started choking. Not just him, but the others in his group also were grabbing their own throats, gagging. Tsunade and the others didn't understand what was going on. She was about to leap over her desk to perform her medical jutsu when suddenly the group of criminals started to float into the air. Tsunade and the others looked back at Naruto and saw that he had his right hand curled upwards. They watched as the boy lifted his arm higher, and with it the arsonists. He flexed his fingers a little, which made them choke and gasp for air even harder. Finally having enough, Naruto threw his hand back, which caused his captives to be thrown back as well. Bam! The criminal scum were flattened hard against the wall. Each of them slid down and slumped over one another, clearly knocked out. The boy then turned his vicious gaze to the Hokage, his sensei and his master. We need to talk. Now, with each word the boy said, more and more of his anger and killer intent became noticeable to the older shinobi in the room. To Jiraiya and Tsunade, this was definitely like what happened with Orochimaru. Only now it seemed different. Before it was only Naruto's eyes that were changed. But now he was taking on more features of the Kyuubi, yet he seemed to still be in control. However, that did little to settle their nerves because Tsunade and the others were starting to think the criminals were not the sole reason Naruto came here like this. Tsunade reached her hand out to the boy in an attempt to calm him down. Naruto, I understand you're angry, but those men are already going to be punished severely for what they did. There's no reason for you to. You lied to me. Tsunade arched her hand back a little with what Naruto said. Confused with what the little genin was implying, Jiraiya, having the same thoughts, spoke calmly to his apprentice. Naruto, what are you talking about? Naruto narrowed his eyes at the toad sage and stepped forward to him. You lied. To me? Tsunade's brain felt like it was hit by thunder as she started to realize what the boy was talking about. No, he can't have found out already. Not now. She was praying to whatever god was out there that the boy didn't already find out about the secret they were hiding. Not after his apartment was just burned down by the cruelty of the villagers. This day couldn't possibly get any worse. Naruto, listen to me, it's acceptable and natural that you're upset about what happened to your apartment, but that's still no excuse to be throwing accusations like that. Especially at the Hokage. I know it's painful, but things will get better, I promise. Now how about I take you out for some Ikaraku ramen? We'll talk more about it. Kakashi held his hand out as sign of peace, and that he just wanted to help the boy get through this ordeal. Naruto's response, however, was a low growl, and he started to let off even more killer intent than before, and it was now being directed at Kakashi. I will not take any promises from you, Headache. Kakashi was stunned by Naruto's reaction. He knew he and Naruto were having a rough patch lately, but he didn't expect any retort like that to come from his student. It also occurred to him that Naruto didn't call him sensei, but by his clan's name instead. In fact, earlier he didn't call Tsunade Granny, which was just as surprising. Tsunade was starting to get more and more nervous with the boy's aggressiveness. She needed to defuse the situation fast before things really got out of hand. She stepped forward with her palms up, motioning the young genin to relax. Calm down, Naruto. Listen to me. You're upset and you're not thinking clearly. You've just been through a traumatic experience and you're having a hard time dealing with it. That's understandable, but we're here to help you. No one here is lying to you, I swear. Now just take a deep breath and MINATONAMIKAZ. KUSHINAUZUMAKI. The day just got over 1,000 times worse. The temperature in the room, which already felt like it dropped more than a few degrees, since the boy walked in, felt like it was below freezing now. Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Kakashi looked at one another, completely caught off guard and unprepared for this. The one secret Naruto was not supposed to know yet, for his own safety, was out. One thing they know they needed to do was make sure it didn't get picked up from this office by any unwanted ears. Jiraiya slammed his hand on the floor, and seals spread out all over the room. They were silent seals that made sure no one would be able to listen in on them any further. Now that the easy part was done, Tsunade and the others were going to have to explain why they had to keep such an important secret from the boy for so many years. It was not going to be easy or pleasant, and judging by the look on Naruto's face, it may even be painful, for both the boy and them. Naruto, we didn't have a choice. Your father is a heartless bastard who sacrificed me, his own son, to be the JINCHURIKI of the KYUUBI, to be its jailer and to have a lifetime of misery and loneliness, all to save this shithole of a village. And my own mother let him do it even when she knew exactly what it was like to be treated as a monster for having a tailed beast inside her. She didn't love me enough to try to stop him. They all knew Naruto wouldn't take the news about the fourth Hokage being his father well, but this was worse than they expected. How did the boy find out about his parents and his mother being a Jinchuriki too? It was an extremely well-guarded secret. Someone must have told Naruto, but who? Tsunade and the others were going to find out about this later, but right now they needed to focus on the boy, who looked like he was on the brink of a mental breakdown. They needed to assure him that it wasn't true. He needed to know that his parents weren't the kind of people that he's come to believe they are. Naruto, during the Third Shinobi War, your father made a lot of enemies. Most were from the Iwagakure. These people would stop at nothing to make your father suffer even in his death. They wouldn't think twice about killing Minato's only child to satisfy their need for revenge. That's why we had to keep your identity a secret, even from you. Jiraiya hoped that his explanation would calm the boy down, to make him understand as to why they had to keep this from him. The boy's reaction was him digging his claws into his palms from how hard he was tightening his fists. His teeth's grinding was literally loud enough to be the only sound in the room next to the sound of his blood dripping to the floor from his fists. The young Jinchuriki was clearly still not taking it well. So you didn't think I could keep another secret about myself? I've gotten this far without telling any one of my friends about the KYUUBI. I'd say that more than proves MYABITLIY to keep S-rank secrets. I would have kept this one too, but no, you didn't trust me at all, did you? No, you all chose to leave me in the dark of something that I had a right to know. The boy was not understanding the situation at all. There was a reason they couldn't tell him yet. None of them, though, at this point expected that the boy was going to accept it as a good one. Naruto, when your father died, he left instructions not to tell you the truth about him and your mother until you became 17 or reached the rank of Jounin. It was Kakashi that spoke up this time. Tsunade remained silent because she figured Jiraiya and Kakashi should be the ones to explain Minato and his actions since they knew him better. Yet, It didn't look like they were getting very far with the boy because he still looked like a cornered animal ready to snap at the closest hand. Of course, he would do that. He wouldn't want me to know that he set me up to be the Leaf's new secret weapon after it was forced upon my mother before me. Not until I was brainwashed into having nothing but absolute loyalty and love for these selfish walking pigs who have done nothing but hate me for something that wasn't even my fault. And you guys actually tried to carry out his wishes even when you knew it was wrong. They were all completely shocked. Not only with how much Naruto found out about his parents, and his mother having to take the responsibility as the village's former Jinchuriki, but also how much he was taking all this information the wrong way. The situation was getting more and more out of hand. Tsunade knew she had to say something to try to settle down the confusion and rage within the little Gaki, to make it clear to him that he wasn't a weapon or being fooled into serving this village. Otherwise, they may have to forcibly restrain him for his own good, something that she was praying wouldn't come to. Naruto, please listen to me. I don't know how you found out about your parents or got the idea that you're a weapon or even that we've been lying because we didn't trust you, but you're wrong. We do trust you and care about you. We just care about me. Naruto shoved his palm out and Tsunade was suddenly pushed back through the air, crashing into her desk. He curled his hand again and began to choke her as she clutched her throat in pain. Jiraiya and Kakashi leapt into action. Jiraiya got to Naruto first and was about to put a paper seal on his forehead but froze. He couldn't move. Next thing he knew, he was being lifted into the air by Naruto's left hand. Naruto threw his left hand into the opposite direction and Jiraiya flew right into Kakashi, just as he finished body flickering to Naruto's right, and caused them both to crash into the wall. Naruto wasn't finished yet as he snapped his left arm back and threw Kakashi and Jiraiya into the opposite wall. They didn't touch the floor after hitting the wall, but were pinned against the wall's surface. Naruto started to close his left hand and began to choke them too. Like hell you all care about me? If that's true, where the fuck were you guys when I was growing up all alone without any friends or family in a village that hated me? None of you were there for me? Naruto turned his attention to Kakashi. The copy ninja was struggling trying to lift his headband for his sharing an eye. Naruto twitched his finger and he began to gag harder due to the feeling of his windpipe being slowly crushed. After increasing the pressure for a few seconds, Naruto loosened the grip on Kakashi's throat, allowing him to breathe easier. Naruto began to speak in a lower tone, but his voice lost none of its aggressiveness or hurtfulness of feeling betrayed. You once taught me that those who break the rules are scum, but those who would abandon even one of their friends are worse than scum. Guess you would know all about that, wouldn't you, since you were my father's student after all. Kakashi ceased his struggling and looked at the boy, shocked with how he would know that. How could he have found out that Minato was his sensei along with everything else? Where did Naruto get all of this information? He was more confused, though, as to where Naruto was going with this. I've been doing research all night, trying to find out what else you bastards have been hiding from me. I found out about your father Headache. He committed suicide after the village treated him with cruelty for abandoning a mission to save his comrades. My father took you under his wing and trained you. I bet that to you he must have been a very good friend or even maybe like an older brother. But when he died and left me, his son, to carry a heavy burden for the village, you did nothing. Kakashi flinched at that remark, as well as being reminded about his father and what happened to his sensei. You did nothing as the son of your sensei was forced to walk through these streets alone and hated. I bet you that there have been more than a few times where you saw how the villagers treated me, and yet you didn't lift a finger to help me out. You never bothered to talk to me, to check up on me and see if I wanted a friend or even just some company. No, you chose to ignore me. I never even met you until I was assigned to your team, and you had the nerve to lecture me, Sakura, and Sasuke about teamwork and never abandoning your comrades when you already abandoned me from the moment I was born. You could have helped me with the academy, my jutsus, or even give me 1 or 2 lousy lessons, but you didn't. The room shook a little from the boy's sudden outburst. Some of the books and scrolls on the bookshelf fell over. Naruto took a breath and continued as the room stopped shaking. You never even tried to teach me any useful jutsus for the Chunin exams. When I was set up to fight Neji, you left me with another Jounin, who didn't even like me, so you could train Sasuke. You said it yourself that Neji may have even been better than Sasuke, who was the rookie of the year in my class, and you did nothing to help me fight him. It took me running into Pervy Sage by sheer luck to learn what I needed to defeat both him and Gaara. I could have died. No, Me and My teammates could have died because you PLAYED favorites and abandoned me instead of preparing me to fight these GUIS. The room shook more violently this time. The windows began to crack, as did some parts of the wall. Kakashi, while he did notice, wasn't distracted by it that much because he was mostly preoccupied with being guilted by what Naruto said. The boy was right. Kakashi didn't do a single thing to help him as he grew up. He knew what it was like to suffer through solitude and hatred. Despite that, he did nothing for this boy, who was Minato-sensei's own son. He broke Obito's rule. The one rule he's lived his life by. He abandoned Naruto. And you! Naruto's words dripped with venom as he turned to Jiraiya. He loosened the force around his own windpipe to allow him to breathe. Of course, Jiraiya would have preferred the strangulation of the force than the hell Naruto was about to unleash upon him. You're even worse than him, you know that pervy sage? No, wait, I shouldn't call you that now, it's not right. Not sensei or master either, not even by your name or title, so how about Godfather? The toad sage felt as if all the warmth in his blood was stolen away. He stared in disbelief at his apprentice. Naruto knows about that too? How could that be? There wasn't any written record of him being the boy's godfather. Jiraiya and the third Hokage agreed that it was for the best to help keep the boy safe. Naruto, I can explain. I had to shut up. Naruto cut Jiraiya off and twitched his finger, which forced the toad Sannin's jaw to slam shut, hard. I don't want to hear any of your excuses, Godfather. You neglected me, your godson, my whole life, and for what? So you could run around peeping on women in bathhouses, picking them up at brothels. Focus on writing those cheap romance novels of yours. Yeah, those are perfect reasons for not raising and taking care of me. I may not be very smart, but I'm not completely stupid, Godfather. Jiraiya flinched. Every time Naruto called him Godfather, he spoke it as if it were an insult. He tried with all his might to open his mouth to explain, but he couldn't. It felt like his jaw was trapped in a vice. Tell me something, did you ever once think of me? Ever wonder if I was okay? Were you ever concerned if the villagers and their children were treating me badly? If I was struggling at the academy? Or even something as simple as me eating healthy? And if you thought of any of that, did you ever bother to find out? No, you didn't. Because if you did, you would have marched back to the Leaf and demanded that I be PLACED in your care like any real godparent would have done. That is, if you weren't so busy being a careless pervert. The room felt like it was going to fall apart. The cracks on the window and walls spread further, forming spider-like webs. The bookcase completely fell over, its contents spilling all over the floor. You didn't care about me at all. Even when I met you at the hot springs, it didn't matter to you if my training for the finals was going well. Not until I used my stupid, sexy jutsu to convince you to train me. Naruto looked down and a few teardrops fell to the floor. He was trying really hard to keep himself from crying. He coughed and shook his head a bit to regain his composure. You know, after the invasion, I thought you actually liked spending time with me. I mean, you chose me to go with you to find Tsunade. You taught me how to use the Rasengan, which was my father's technique, and you bought me those popsicles when I was trying to figure out the steps. To be honest, it was one of the happiest moments I had during our mission, maybe even my whole life. Now I see that the real reason you chose to take me was to make sure nothing happened to the Leaf's weapon. To keep me and the fox from falling into the Akatsuki's hands and be used against the village. That and the reason you trained me was simply because of my father. He was your apprentice too, and you said it yourself that I reminded you of him. If it weren't for that, you would have had no interest in keeping me as your student. Do you even believe that I'll become Hokage, or were you just leading me on so I wouldn't suspect anything? Suspect that you were just keeping the weapon my father left for this village safe. Jiraiya wanted very badly to tell his godson that he was wrong. He did care about him, he did believe in him. However, the boy made excellent points. Jiraiya was never there for him when he was growing up all alone without anyone. Sure, he checked in every once in a while with Sarutobi to see how Naruto was doing in the village, but he never acted on the times when boy was seriously struggling. Jiraiya slumped forward as the guilt settled in. The reasons he had for staying away from Naruto may have been good at the time, but now he realizes that they may have been nothing more than feeble excuses. He knew that Naruto was having it hard in the village, but the Sannin trusted his late teacher to take care of his godson. It should have been him to look after him. If Minato or Kushina were alive, they would be so disappointed and ashamed of him. And Naruto, please, stop this, you've got it all wrong. Naruto narrowed his eyes and turned to Tsunade, who was struggling to speak while still being choked by the force. The young Uzumaki walked slowly towards her, relaxing his grip on her throat. Tsunade coughed as she tried to regain her breath. She then focused on trying to free herself. She concentrated her chakra through her arms and legs in an attempt to break free of this invisible yet powerful restraint on her body. She was able to get her right arm and left leg a little loose before they slammed back down against her broken desk. It's no good. My chakra isn't working against his power. Now I know how Orochimaru felt when he was caught and tossed like a rag doll. Tsunade looked up and saw Naruto, glaring down at her with his red flaming eyes. Well, it sure as hell wouldn't be the first time I've gotten something wrong. I've been getting things wrong most of my life because, like I said, I had no godfather, no former friend of my father, and no other family member. But you would know why I didn't have any family in the village at the time, wouldn't you, Tsunade? Tsunade's eyes widened, and for the first time since she overcame her hemophobia, she felt herself overcome with fear. During my research last night, I found out that your grandfather, Hashirama Senju, was married to a member of my clan. Her name was Mito Uzumaki. Sound familiar? Of course it should. She was your grandmother, which means that you and I are related. Isn't that right? Tsunade looked down at the floor, slowly nodding like she was a disobedient child being scolded by a parent that was furious. When my godfather first introduced me to you, I could tell by your reaction that you knew who I was. You knew I carried the same burden as both my mother and your grandmother. And like my godfather, you never bothered to check up on me or even write me a simple message scroll. The last and maybe only relative I had left, who knew about me, didn't care enough to make sure I was even alive or safe. No, you were too busy drinking and gambling. When we finally met, what did you do? You insulted me. You insulted my dream of becoming Hokage. You didn't bother to ask me how I was or if I was doing all right in the village or even give me a simple hug. You didn't care. At first, I understood why, because you were still grieving from the precious people you lost, who also had the dream of becoming Hokage. But now I see that even if you weren't still mourning, you would have still humiliated me, taken my money, and just insulted me and my dream more like it's the most enjoyable experience in the world for you. In the end, I had to save your life, just to get you to finally see me as more than just a stupid, annoying brat. Something you already should have done when you first laid eyes on me. Tsunade started to slump in defeat from the barrage of guilt Naruto was throwing at her. She could no longer focus on trying to break free, not with all this shame weighing her down, and there was more of it to come. You know you were the closest thing to a grandmother or even a mother I ever had. It was the reason I called you Granny all the time. When you kissed me on the forehead, it was the first time I ever got a kiss like that from a woman that I thought really cared about me, but you don't, do you? You never came to see me, like a concerned family member would. You didn't tell me about my parents. You said I didn't deserve to become a Chunin. You don't care. Tsunade winced at that short outburst, as did Jiraiya and Kakashi when Naruto turned to face them. None of you did. You all saw me struggling with the villagers and with desperately wanting to know about my parents. Yet, you all chose to hide the one thing that could have changed everything. The pieces of the walls began to break off, and the window looked like it was going to shatter completely. The books on the floor began to levitate and float while spinning violently around, some of them being torn to shreds. After a few minutes of his power running amok, Naruto reeled it back in again before the room could fall apart. Silence followed. Not one among them could muster up the courage to speak to the boy who felt betrayed. Naruto's words and insults felt sharper than any kunai, and they struck hard, and some of them struck hard and true. Each of them knew that they committed an awful sin to the boy. They each have lied to him, and none of them were there to support or even just be there for him while he grew up in this living, lonely hell. They just didn't know what to say to him. What could they say? Naruto looked at each one of them as he sensed their remorse and shame. A part of him deep down actually felt satisfied with inflicting this guilt upon them. Another part felt regret and empathy for causing this to the ones he considered his precious people. It didn't matter now, though. What's done is done. Before he would leave, though, he wanted to say one final thing to them on the matter. They may be my parents by blood, but the way I see it, they're nothing more than scum to me. Scum who used me to save people that would end up hating me no matter what. You know, I think all along there's only been two people in this entire village that didn't think of me as a weapon or a monster. Two people who actually believed that I'm a human being, a shinobi that will become Hokage. Because of their faith, I won't give up on my dream no matter what. It's my goal. even if I can't count on you guys anymore to believe in me." Naruto was about to release them and head to door until he sensed something. Their thoughts were drowning in remorse and guilt even more so than before. Almost like it was being poured down their throats against their will, and it didn't even have to do with their guilt of abandoning him. There was something else he sensed, a feeling that was all too familiar to him. It was coming from all of them, especially within Tsunade. It was fear. Naruto turned to the slug princess and saw that she had her head down, looking down in the corner of her eyes. "You're hiding something else from me, aren't you? I can sense your thoughts and feelings." Tsunade snapped her head to the boy with her eyes wide with disbelief. She looked to Jiraiya and Kakashi, and they both looked at her with the same shocked expressions plastered on their faces. Naruto slowly walked back to the slug Sannin like a predator stalking its prey. He's had enough of their secrets and lies. If there was another, then he was determined to get it out of them. No matter what. Whatever it is you're hiding, you're afraid of me finding out, but you also feel guilty for not telling me. You've been keeping this secret from me for the last few days. I knew there was something else you weren't telling me. Naruto stood in front of Tsunade again. She turned her head to the side and slammed her eyes shut. She couldn't tell him the truth. She just couldn't. If she did, it would devastate Naruto completely. If she didn't, though, and Naruto finds out what she's been hiding, then the boy would never trust any of them again. Tsunade felt her head rotate on its own till she was face to face with the boy again, the features of the Kyuubi becoming more and more prominent with his rage. "What is it you're hiding, Tsunade? What is it you've been keeping me in the dark from recently? What is it? Tell me, tell me." Naruto brought his hand up with his fingers stretched out to Tsunade's face, and she suddenly felt a searing pain through her head. It felt like all the hangovers she's ever had in her life multiplied by 100. As she started to grunt in pain, Kakashi and Jiraiya struggled more against the grip of the force. It was to no avail, though, as it was too strong and unknown to them. The Lady Hawkeye looked at the boy that she cared for deeply and realized she couldn't tell him no matter what. The boy could lose control and go berserk if she did, lose his mind and soul to the Kyuubi forever. She would not allow that to happen. She will not allow this already heartbroken boy to lose himself upon knowing the truth. The problem was the Sannin knew she couldn't lie to him again. She and the others have already lied to him enough as it is. Lied about things the boy had more than a right to know. That, and with his new ability to somehow sense their minds, lying was useless. Nevertheless, she could not tell Naruto. Not just for his safety, but perhaps the safety of the entire village. There were times like this where she really hated being Hawkeye. "Naruto, I can't tell you, not while you're like this. If you knew, you would. You would. I'm like this because of your lies, because of all of you. Now I'll ask again, what are you hiding?" Before Tsunade could say more, the door to her office opened, and in walked Shizune with a folder containing files that was marked as S-rank secrets. "Lady Tsunade, we just finished our autopsy of the bodies. Here are the—" Shizune gasped at the sight of the ruined office, but what was even more appalling was that Naruto was pinning down her master, while holding Kakashi and Jiraiya against the wall. It was so shocking that it caused her to drop the folder, causing the S-rank documents to spill out all over the floor. One document slid to Naruto's feet. Curious of what it was, he released Tsunade, who began to clutch her head in pain, and picked it up. His eyes sped fast through the document until they came to a screeching halt to one line. Naruto's arms fell to their sides, which caused Kakashi and Jiraiya to be freed from his grasp. His eyes were wide open, and tears began to flow out of them like rivers during a heavy storm. He began to whimper like a beaten pup. The paper slipped out of his hand to the floor. Tsunade, upon realizing what the document was, rushed to Naruto, kneeling down while grabbing him gently by the shoulders. Naruto didn't react, of course, because it felt like his world just completely shattered. The poor boy gasped for air and began to hyperventilate. He couldn't breathe. Naruto began clutching his chest in pain while trying desperately to get some air into his lungs. He still didn't notice that the Lady Hawkeye was trying to help him while at the same time express her guilt and sorrow. "Naruto, Naruto, look at me, look at me. You have to slow your breathing. I understand you're in pain and I'm sorry. I am so sorry, Naruto. We were going to tell you. I swear upon my life we... A-R-R-R-R-R-R-G-G-G-G-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H. Naruto roared as he suddenly brought his arms to his chest and shoved them out to his sides. Everyone and everything in the room suddenly repulsed away. All the furniture was blown to bits by the shockwave, including most of the glass for the office window. The others were sent flying and crashing through the walls except in Tsunade's case, as she was sent flying back into her desk and smashed it to pieces. Naruto ran past Tsunade and jumped out the window, smashing through the remaining glass and descended to the ground below. He didn't care about trying to grab onto anything. He wanted to get away as fast as possible. Moments later, he landed on all fours, creating a small crater which cracked the earth and stirred up dust. The red chakra of the Kyuubi began to engulf his body as he roared out to the village all the anger, fury, and pain that was bubbling inside of him. As if responding to his primal rage, all the windows in the Hawkage Tower shattered to pieces. The occupants inside, too terrified to even investigate due to the animalistic cry of the young Jinchuriki. Naruto began repeatedly smashing the ground with his fists, causing the ground to break and more cracks to spread in and around the crater. Deciding that wasn't enough to ease the torture he was going through, he got on all fours and headed into the village. Tsunade groaned in pain as she felt herself being lifted up from the splintered remains of her desk. She opened her eyes and saw that it was Jirya, who had a look of deep emotional pain and dread on his face. Shizune climbed out of the hole she made and immediately rushed to her master's side and began checking her for injuries. Meanwhile, the lone document that Naruto had was gently picked up by Kakashi. He looked down in such regretful sorrow at the contents of the document. A document that contained the secret they never should have hidden from Naruto. It was the death certificate of Uruka Yumino.